the idea that an energy change in the solar system does not simply refer to an increase in the heat level of the planets or the brightness of the planets or the magnetic field strength, etc., which is the kind of changes that I'm describing in each planet. And if consciousness and energy are interconnected, then quid pro quo, a change in the solar system also refers to a change in consciousness.
When one examines the I Ching, the King-Wen sequence, what is immediately apparent after only a few minutes of inspection is that it is not simply 64 hexagrams in some random association, but rather that the hexagrams occur in pairs. The second term of each pair is the inversion of the previous hexagram. What this is essentially an energy structure drawn out of a mathematical analysis of the King-Wen sequence. Here is the fractal pattern that is typical of the entire wave. It happens to show up at certain levels. And the notion is that throughout the wave, when it is moving downward, novelty, density of connection is increasing. So the general conclusion from these screens is that novelty is being increased and conserved as we move through time. Now, for instance, in this screen, which is further closure with today, we see 562 million years, virtually the entire career of higher life forms on the planet. 8,500 years on the screen. The great Proto-Egyptian civilizations, Sumer, Chaldea, are strung out like pearls along this plunge. Egypt culminates that ancient hierarchical form of dominator society. Mycenaean pirates plunder Minoan Crete at this point. Here we have the Periclean age in Athens. Here we have the Augustinian age in Rome. Down here we have the Roman collapse, and then the oscillating around a mean in a high novelty domain that has characterized time since the fall of the Roman Empire.
We are in the last 7 years of a 26,000-year cycle. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can't hide. You can't get your mama to tell you it's not happening. You can't get scientists to say it doesn't happen unless you can get somebody to move the sky. The Mayans wrote about, described, and carved Neptune in their understanding of the universe, and Pluto, and Charon, and Xena. 2600 BC, they knew this. They wrote it down, carved it in stone. Well, we didn't discover Neptune until 1843. We didn't discover Pluto until 1931. We didn't discover Charon until 2001. And we didn't discover Xena until 2003. Explain that to me. Think about it. Where are you going to go if that's true? Whatever you think right now about who you are and where you came from, and that's true, then who are you and where did you come from? And do you believe the history that you've been told?
There's a lot of people doing interesting work in the 2012 paradigm. People like John Major Jenkins, people like Jay Widener, people, well, like some of the people that we've assembled here, David Wilcock and David Flynn. But what has been missing is the physics behind those tales. Why was it that the Maya, for instance, were so fixated on the center of the Milky Way? How did they even know that the Milky Way galaxy was A, a galaxy, and B, it had a center? If you look at the Milky Way arching across the night sky, it is not readily apparent to the untrained eye that it has a center. It looks like a band of milky light circling the heavens, alternately tipped in one direction and another as the seasons unfold. The Maya knew it had a center. The Vedic tradition, half a world away, literally on the other side of this planet, thousands of years ago, knew the Milky Way was an assemblage of stars to which the sun belonged, and that we orbited around a center. In fact, they even had the concept that the center of the Milky Way was some incredibly all-encompassing, massive, dark object, i.e., a black hole. And modern science, in the last 10, 20 years, has demonstrated that, in fact, yes, a black hole, a dense object, not emitting light, but of intense gravity, something like 3 or 4 million times the mass of the sun, lurks at the center of the galaxy. And in fact, in astrology, it is the unsung 800-pound gorilla, or pink elephant, mixing our metaphors, Natalie, in the room. Because in terms of the influence, celestial influences that we now can discuss rationally in terms of the hyperdimensional model, in terms of those influences which influence not only our individual lives, but our collective lives as a people on this planet, it turns out that our geometric relationship to the center of the Milky Way galaxy is of overwhelming importance. And we will be able to demonstrate for you in a very elegant and very visual way that that geometric relationship to the galaxy, which comes to a penultimate climax at 11:11 a.m., December 21, 2012, is in fact a physically meaningful relationship and is behind, quite likely, all of the mythos that the Vedas and the Mayas and the Egyptians and the others have given us down through the centuries and thousands of years.
What I discovered, in a nutshell, is that there is this very rare astronomical alignment that's happening in the years around 2012. We might think of a 36-year window, and it's not just some random assortment of planets in a certain sign or something. It actually has to do with the entire framework of the sky. And it's called a galactic alignment. It's referred to as a galactic alignment. It's a real thing. It's a real empirical thing. Astronomers have calculated it. It happens only once every 26,000 years. And from the vantage point of the Earth, we will be lining up with the center of the Milky Way galaxy, the center of our Milky Way. And this happens only once every 26,000 years.
The Mayans give us, in the Western world, the greatest opportunity to see the changing face in time because they were obsessed with it. Because in time, the Mayans created calendars that were so accurate that they rival any calendar, and they're more precise than any calendar that we've created in our entire history. The Mayans invented the zero. The zero. Western consciousness didn't discover the zero for another 1,000 years. And the Mayans invented the zero because they needed to calculate the precession of planets as they moved so that they could build buildings that would be celebrations of events 800 to 1,000 years into the future. You know when we learned how to do that? Sometime in the 70s. And we had calculators and computers and telescopes. They didn't have any of that, so it's said.
The Mayans say that December 21st, 2012 That's when the cycle closes. What cycle? Okay, the 5,125-year cycle of history, 26,000-year cycle of the sun going around, the Earth going around the ecliptic, and an even larger cycle, 104,000-year cycle. All these cycles are coming to an end. We are living in a really, really powerful, momentous event in time at this moment.
One wonders if there really is some empirical, scientific, energetic sort of basis to this galactic alignment. You know, we're lining up with the plane of the Milky Way galaxy.